Hello everyone, welcome back to the second episode. So we're going to focus on the rites and personal nourishment. So the rites can be conceived as a process of humanization and should be performed with kind of general emotions. And for he who actively participates in the rite must cultivate his human relations. So in other words, in the ruler's case, using the rites to properly rule land further demands the correction of the ruler's personal character. So it is not only true for the ruler, but also true for the common people. When the master said, one is inspired by the book of the poetry, established by the rite and perfected by music. And he also said, without recognizing the decree of heaven, it is impossible to become a junzi. Without understanding the rules of propriety, it is impossible for the character to be established. So these two sentences are all talking about the self-establishment and self-nourishment. The Confucius stressed the ethical significance of the rite and saw them as a means of bringing order into the life of the individual and also to his relations with his family and his dealings with the society as a whole, so that he would be established by the rites and his human relationship be perfected. When human behavior is subjected to the demands of the rite, so it tends to become a mere habit, which also shapes the very nature of human relationships. So things like that. If a society is governed by the rules of the rites, it will rest upon a strong sense of mutual trust, despite some conflicts. So it is true with the establishment of the self and man's social connections.
当今天下的动乱之源，不在各有所争，而是伪礼之争。人心变恶，是因为缺少礼乐教化。人不可能没有私欲，寡欲也难以做到。所能做到的是克制私欲，使言行合乎于礼。夏商周三代之礼，虽皆为圣贤所制，却并非越古越好。我所以赞成周礼，是因为它最适合治理当今天下，并非小国寡民才为美好。孔丘所向往的社会是既太平又昌盛，而绝非清静无为。
A number of the passages in the Analects emphasized the ritual must be practiced with the reverence, with a sincere and emotional understanding. When Master said, what can I find worthy of note in a man who is lacking in tolerance when in a high position, in reverence when performing the rites, and in sorrow when in mourning? And such emotional engagement is so important. Like the master once said, surely when one says about the music, it is not enough merely to mean the bells and the drums. So in this case, the presentation of the gifts, even though expensive, without engaging emotionally, and it can be meaningless. And the analogy with the music is like this. Clanging bells and beating drums do not make music unless the performances of the music are accompanied by the appropriate emotion. So let's look at what the Confucius did himself when he went to the temple, and he asked every details about the sacrifice. And he was kind of mocked by some people, and some people saying that you are from state of Zhou. You're said to know everything, but how come that you ask every detail about the sacrifice? And the Confucius replied, well, the inquiry itself is a right. And in the periods of the fast, he would wear a clean robe made of plain clothes in periods of the fast, and he would take a more austere diet and not sit in his usual place. He did not sit unless the mat straight. In the sacrifice, one should feel the presence of whomever he worships and being his ancestors or divine beings. So this is exactly like what the Master emphasized. Unless I'm present in person, I will not be said to have attended it. In other cases, the Confucius teaching tells us about the rites and harmonies and humaneness and the law. Some sentence like, in practice of rites, the harmony is most valuable. And if a man is not humane, what is the point of teaching him the rites? If the man is not humane, what is the point of teaching him the music? So there's a sentence which is very well known about the relations between the rites and the law. And when the Master said, if the person are guided by laws and kept in order by punishment, they would just try to avoid the punishment and have no sense of shame. If they are guided by virtue and kept in order by the rites, they would have the sense of shame and thus submit. In this passage, it draws a sharp contrast between the li, the rites, and the fa, the law. If the behavior of the people are constrained by the outside force, namely as a fa, they try to avoid being punished by using some so-called cleverness. So they will not have the sense of the shame, and eventually, and they can be very, very smart to avoid being punished. We can see that though the propriety and or the ritual are critically important, it should not be overridden by the behavioral norms. The extreme act of such a ritual concept will lead to stupidity. It's exactly like what Lu Xun, the modern Chinese writer and critic, said about this stupidity of the behavioral norms. And he justified in calling this type of li the eating man. Last, let's talk about making friend. The rites, in the sense of making friend, provides a platform of expression for both agents to show their desires for friendship. In other words, the expressions of friendship can be recognized and protected in the hamlet of the rites, and whereas common rules are shared by both sides and among the society as a whole. So in the Analects, there are many sentences about the Confucius view of making friend. The first sentence, is it a joy to have a like-minded friend coming from afar? And also said, 君子 makes friend through being cultivated, but looks to friends for support in humaneness. And another sentence, being earnest and keen among friends and genuine among brothers. And if the people who follow different ways never have anything helpful to say to one another. Zigong asked about how friends should be treated. The Master said, advise them to the best of your ability and guide them properly. But stop when there is no hope of success. Do not ask to be snubbed. The Master also said there are 3 kinds of friendship which are beneficial and 3 kinds of friendship which are harmful. So friendship with the straight and the trustworthy and learned is beneficial, and friendship with the double-dealing, the obsequious and glib is harmful. And the master said there are some people you can study with but may not pursue the way with, and some you can pursue the way with but may not take the common stand with, and some you can take a common stand with but may not exercise moral discretion in common. These several sentences depicts that the Confucius view about making friend, and you need to be close to people who is humanist, and of course you need to recognize the shared common the views among the friends. And of course, you need to be helpful and exert your positive energy to your friend. So making a friend is to create a kind of harmonious environment for both agents to find joy in such a shared common ground. To conclude the main idea of this chapter, we may say that the rites constitutes the foundation of the society, and they are the means of showing the reverence for the awe-inspiring subjects in this world. In a sense, they guarantee the dialogue between heaven and man. What's more important is that propriety enables man to nourish himself. So we need to remember, in whatever case, the rites can bring forth the benefit to others. Think about your positive energy over others. It is by building your own character, cultivating the moral part of you, that you become more meaningful to people around you. That's the end of this episode. Thank you for being with me. See you.